Alright, moving on to unit 1.9. It should look a little familiar because we started covering it in unit 0, but we're going to dig a little deeper. In unit 1.9 is one-step and two-step equations. Alright, so let's go over what we remember. Hopefully you made it this far. Alright, so to isolate the variable, right, you get it by itself, you have to get rid of everything that's around it. We want the variable on the left by itself and all the numbers on the right combined, right? You use inverse property to make that happen. So whatever exists, you do the opposite, right? Inverse, addition and subtraction are inverse, they are opposites. Multiplication and division are inverse, they're opposites, right? So this is a positive 12, so we're going to subtract 12 from both sides. Now remember, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side to keep it an equation, to keep it equal, right? So you're left with m equals negative 2, right? That's your answer. If you start with a variable in the problem, there should probably be 98% of the time there should be a variable in your answer. If you just put negative 2, that's not an answer. M equals negative 2 because you're telling us what m equals. Right? Alright, so again, it doesn't matter what order they lay stuff out in, your job is to get the variable by itself. Right? So let's get the variable by itself by getting rid of this negative 9. We're going to add 9 to both sides. This is going to give you 7 equals g. And remember what I said, I prefer the variable on the left, the numbers on the right. So symmetrical property says we can flip these without changing anything. So g equals 7 is your answer. Variable on the left, numbers on the right. Alright, these are your guided notes. Hopefully you're following along, you're getting the idea. Alright, this is negative 7 times y. Remember, when a coefficient and a variable are together, it implies multiplication, right? So the opposite of multiplication is divide. We're going to divide by negative 7. Y equals 21? No, that's too much. 13? Yeah, 13. So negative 13. Okay. This one is read as a divided by 9 equals negative 4. This is division. The opposite of division is multiplication. So we multiply both sides by 9 to cancel the 9. And we're left with a equals negative 36. Simple enough. You use inverse property. If there's an addition in the way, you use subtraction. If there's subtraction in the way, you use addition. If there's multiplication in the way, you divide. If there's division in the way, you multiply. Opposites. Alright? Alright, now what if they add fractions? Don't panic. I know, you hate fractions. You don't have to remind me. Alright, so it says to get rid of a fraction, multiply by the inverse, the opposite, right? The inverse or the opposite. Multiply by its opposite, its flip, right? So right now you have negative 6 over 5k. Negative 6 over 5 times k equals 12. We want to get rid of this, right? So you multiply it by its flip. Multiply by negative 5 over 6. Flipped it. I literally flipped it, right? But what you do to one side, you have to do to the other, right? We want to get rid of this negative 6 over 5, so I flipped it and multiplied. Because I did that, these cancel out and these cancel out, and you're left with 1. And 1 can be invisible. That's why we flipped and multiplied, to turn that into 1. Now on this side, you could either simplify first, or you could multiply and then simplify. Let's multiply and then simplify. We're left with k equals negative 60 over 6. Both of those can be divided by 6. Both of those can be, by 6. You're left with negative 10. Because it's a fraction, you flip. Okay, let's do it again. 2/3 times x equals 10. We need to get rid of this 2/3. We need to get rid of the whole fraction. So we're going to flip and multiply. Flip and multiply. These are going to cancel out again. Leave you with that invisible 1. And then we're left with x equals 30 over 2. And remember, when you're dividing by 2, it literally just means half. Half of 30 is 15. That's your answer. When you're dividing by 2, it just means half. Half of something. Half of 30, which is 15. So it's no big deal just because they added fractions. You just flip and multiply on both sides of the equation. Okay? Let's see what comes next.